exposing the secrets behind successful businesses, starts with a simple click. Welcome to Business Diaries. Right, let's dive headfirst into the thrilling, and I use that word loosely, world of inflation. Inflation, it sounds a bit like an overinflated bouncy castle, doesn't it? And in a way it is, but instead of fun, it's your cost of living that's getting pumped up. Simply put, inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is rising, and consequently, the purchasing power of your hard-earned cash is falling. It means that your 10-quid note, bless its cotton paper heart, doesn't stretch as far as it did last year, or even last month sometimes. It's a bit like a very slow, very annoying puncture in your financial tires. Now this isn't usually some dramatic overnight Hollywood disaster where a loaf of bread suddenly costs £100, though, let's be honest, with the way things are going, who even knows anymore? Typically, inflation is a more gradual creep, a sneaky little gremlin that adds a few pence here, a quid there, until you suddenly realize your weekly shop is costing you an arm and a leg, and you're seriously considering growing your own potatoes in the bathtub. It's the reason your grandparents bang on about how sweets used to cost a halfpenny. They're not just being old, they're remembering a time before this relentless upward shuffle of prices. Think about it like this. Imagine you have a favorite chocolate bar, let's call it a Choco Bliss extravaganza. Last year it was a delightful £1. This year you wander into the shop craving that sugary hit and boom, it's £1.10. That, my friends, is inflation in action, making your chocolatey dreams just that little bit more expensive. It's not that the chocolate bar has magically got 10% better or bigger. Oh no, it's often the same size, or sometimes insultingly, even smaller. The value of your money has simply gone down relative to the cost of the Choco Bliss. It's a subtle financial kick in the teeth. So inflation is essentially the economy's way of giving you a pay cut without actually changing your salary figure. Your payslip might say the same number, but what that number can actually in the real world shrinks. It's a persistent, often frustrating feature of most modern economies. Understanding this basic concept is pretty crucial because whether you like it or not, this phenomenon affects almost every aspect of your financial life, from your grocery bill to your savings, and even your plans for the future. Now let's talk about the real kicker buying power, or more accurately, your rapidly diminishing buying power. When prices go up because of inflation, each pound, each euro, each whatever you've got, buys a smaller quantity of goods and services. It's like trying to fill a pint glass that has a tiny, almost invisible hole in the bottom. You keep pouring your money in, but the level just doesn't seem to rise as much as it should. This erosion of purchasing power is the most direct and widely felt impact of inflation on ordinary people just trying to get by without selling a kidney. Consider the weekly grocery shop, that delightful excursion into the land of how did it get this expensive. You might have a budget, say £80 a week. A few years ago, that £80 might have filled your trolley to bursting with essentials, maybe even a cheeky treat or two. But as inflation marches on, that same £80 starts to look a bit pathetic. The trolley looks emptier. You're making tougher choices, branded beans or own brand. Maybe skip the biscuits this week. It's the same amount of money leaving your bank account, but you're getting less stuff in return. Your money is, quite literally, buying less. And it's not just the food. Oh no, inflation loves to meddle everywhere. Think about filling up your car with petrol. Remember when you could get a full tank for, say, £50? Now that same £50 might only get you 3/4 of a tank, or even less if inflation is really having a party. This means your commute to work costs more, visiting your nan costs more, even a trip to the tip costs more. It's a relentless squeeze. And if your wages aren't increasing at the same rate as inflation, you are effectively getting poorer, even if your salary number stays the same or goes up a tiny bit. This reduction in buying power can have serious consequences. It can mean families have to cut back on essential spending, delay important purchases, or dip into savings, if they're lucky enough to have any. It makes planning for the future incredibly difficult. How can you save for a deposit on a flat when the goalposts for house prices and the value of your savings are constantly shifting? It's like trying to hit a moving target while blindfolded and riding a unicycle. Understanding this impact is key to realizing why inflation isn't just some abstract economic term. It's a real force shaping your everyday life. So, if prices are constantly tiptoeing upwards, who on earth is keeping track of all this? Is there some poor soul with a clipboard meticulously noting the price of every single banana in the country? Well, not quite. But it's not far off. Governments and statistical agencies measure inflation using something called a price index. And the most common one you'll hear about is the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. Imagine a massive, hypothetical shopping basket filled with hundreds of common goods and services that households typically buy. We're talking bread, milk, bus fares, cinema tickets, even haircuts. Statisticians then track the total cost of this basket over time. If the cost of the basket goes up by, say, 2% in a year, then the inflation rate is reported as 2%. This CPI figure is what you hear newsreaders gravely intoning about. It's an average, of course, so your personal inflation rate might be different depending on what you actually buy. If you don't drive, a surge in petrol prices won't hit you directly as hard, but if you live on avocados and fancy coffee, your personal basket might be inflating faster than a politician's ego. It's a vital economic indicator nonetheless. Now, why does this infuriating price creep happen in the first place? Well, economists, bless their complex charts, generally point to two main culprits. The first is demand-pull inflation. This is classic too much money chasing too few goods. Imagine a new games console is released, but the company only makes a limited number. Suddenly, everyone wants one. Shops can, and often do, whack up the price because they know desperate gamers will pay. Extend this across the whole economy. If everyone is feeling flush and wants to buy stuff but there isn't enough stuff to go around, prices get pulled upwards. The other main type is cost-push inflation. This happens when the costs for businesses to produce goods and services go up. For instance, if the price of oil skyrockets, which it has a nasty habit of doing, then the cost of transporting goods increases. The cost of materials to make things might go up. Energy bills for factories might soar. Businesses, not being charities, will usually pass these increased costs on to consumers in the form of higher prices. So your favorite crisps suddenly cost more, not because everyone wants them, but because it costs more to make and deliver them. It's a delightful pincer movement on your finances. Right, so we've established that inflation is a bit of a pain in the proverbial. It makes your money feel increasingly worthless and your future uncertain. So the big question is, can anyone actually do anything about it? Or are we all just doomed to watch our Freddo bars shrink while their prices balloon to the size of a small car? Well, governments, and more specifically central banks, like the Bank of England over here or the Federal Reserve in the US, do try to keep inflation under control. It's one of their main jobs, ostensibly. Their primary weapon in this fight is usually interest rates. Now stick with me. When the central bank raises interest rates, it becomes more expensive for commercial banks to borrow money. They, in turn, pass these higher costs onto you and me by increasing the interest rates on mortgages, loans, and credit cards. The idea is that if borrowing becomes more expensive, people and businesses will borrow less and therefore spend less. If people spend less, the demand for goods and services falls, which should, in theory, help to cool down those rising prices. Clever, eh? Or at least, that's the plan. Of course, it's a bit of a balancing act. If they raise interest rates too much or too quickly, they can slow down the economy too severely, potentially leading to a recession, which is a whole other barrel of economic misery where people lose jobs. So, they aim for a sort of Goldilocks level of inflation, not too hot, not too cold, usually around a target of 2% per year. This small, predictable level of inflation is generally considered healthy for an economy, as it encourages people to spend and invest, rather than just hoarding cash that's losing value, however slowly. Ultimately, understanding inflation isn't just for economists in ivory towers, it's for everyone. It affects your daily budget, your savings, your ability to plan for big life events, and even your retirement. Knowing how it works, what causes it, and how it's supposedly managed can help you make more informed financial decisions. It might not make that £1.50 Freddo any easier to swallow, but at least you'll understand the sneaky economic forces that put it there. And frankly, in this day and age, just understanding what's hitting your wallet is half the battle. Good luck out there.